JinPingMei Original Version Chapter 79. Simon King died due to greed, and Wu Yunyang lost her spouse and gave birth to a child. Speaking of Simon King, he cheated on Li Ju's wife and went back to the rolling shed to drink with Uncle Wu, Count Ying, Zizida and Chang Jiji, Mrs. Jing Tongxi, Mrs. Zhang Tuanlian, Mrs. Kiao's mother, Mrs. Kui's mother, Wu Dejinzi, and Sister Dwen sat for a long time, served Yuang Xiao dumplings, and then got up. Da Jinzi and Wu Shenshen's daughter-in-law went home that day. Chen Jingji sent Wang Wang's relatives and opera singers to Tales of Silver to sing songs, and they were waiting to go out with wine and food tubes. There were only 4 singers, including Xiao Yaoer, who was still playing, singing and serving drinks in the studio. The Earl said to Simon King, "Brother, whose birthday is tomorrow, brother, have you sent a gift?" Simon King said, "I sent it to you early in the morning." Diane said, "Uncle Hu's messenger came to Dinger to deliver the invitation." The Count said, "Brother, are you going tomorrow? I can come and meet you." Simon King said, "We'll see tomorrow. If not, you can go first." After a while, the 4 singers left behind, and Li Ming came up to play and sing, while Simon King couldn't help but just doze off on the chair. Uncle Wu said, "Brother-in-law has worked hard these days. Come on, let's say goodbye." So he got up. Simon King refused and just stopped him, staying there until the second watch before leaving. Simon King first sent for singing sedans, and gave Li Ming and the other three people to glasses of wine each with a big bell. He also paid 6 Chen singing money. Before leaving, he called Li Ming back to pay for it. "I want to pay for it on the 15th. Please, Master Zhou, Master Jing, and Father He, please call the 4 singers for me, so don't miss it." Li Ming knelt down and asked, "Who are those 4? Simon King said, "Fan Beijia's slave, Qin Yuzhir, Fang Jinbauer, who was sung by Father He the day before yesterday, and Lu Sayer. I finally called them." Li Ming promised. "I understand, little one," kowtowed and went. Simon King returned to Yunyang's room behind him. Yunyang told, "Mrs. Lin and Mrs. Jing really liked each other today, so we sat there and went there late at night. At the banquet, she thanked me again and said, 'I am supported by my father, but I will not forget the benefits. I will go to Huaiyi River in the moonlight. I urge you to collect grain and transport it.'" He also said, "Madam, he also had a lot of wine today. She liked 6th sister and took her to the garden hill over there to have a look. Today she also received many rewards in various categories." After that, Simon King rested in the upper room. In the middle of the night, Yunyang had a dream, and she told Simon King in the morning, "I saw Mrs. Wang wearing a big red velvet robe during the day, and I dreamed about you at night." Sister Li found a big red velvet robe in her box. "My son, I was wearing it, but 6th sister Pan snatched it away with her hands and put it on him. I got angry and said, 'Just go and wear his fur coat if you want it. Come and take this robe.' He made Xing'er tear a big gash in the upper part of his robe, and I yelled at him. I woke up after yelling. I don't think it was a nightmare." Simon King said, "It doesn't matter. I will just find something to wear for you tomorrow. Dreams have been in my mind since ancient times. When I got up the next day, my head was heavy and I was too lazy to go to the Yamen. I combed my hair and face, put on my clothes, and came to sit in the study in front. I saw Yuxia when Ryer squeezed half a cup of milk, and went to the study to take medicine with Simon King." Simon King was leaning on the bed and asked Wang Jing to kick his legs for him. When Wang Jing saw Yuxiao coming, he went out. "You shall send him to take medicine." And Simon King asked him to take a pair of golden laid hairpins and 4 black silver rings and send them to Li Ju's wife's house. When the jade flute saw that his master had asked him to do this for a living, and he seemed to come to Wang's wife's account, he hurriedly dug for a crack, but it was gone. After delivering the things, he walked back to Simon to congratulate him and said, "Take it, I'll count out it at another day." He took the empty bowl back and went to the upper room. Yunyang asked Xiao Yu to cook some porridge, but she didn't come in until around dinner time. It turned out that Wang Jingxiao had brought a bag of belongings from his sister Wang Liuer, handed it to Simon King, and invited Simon King to go to his house. Simon King opened the paper bag, but it was a piece of black, glossy green silk cut by his wife. It was wrapped with 5-color velvet into a concentric knot and tied with two brocade ribbons. It was very delicate. The other item is a 2-mouth mandarin duck and purple gold-covered bag, filled with melons and raspberries. Simon King watched it for a long time and was filled with joy. So he put the bag in the study cabinet, and a brocade holder fell into his sleeve. While he was meditating, he suddenly saw Wu Yunyang walking over. She opened the curtain and saw him lying on the bed. Wang Jing was kicking his legs and said, "Why are you just looking ahead and not going in? There are so many things in the room. You're eating porridge. Tell me, what's going on in your heart that you're just feeling down?" Simon King said, "I don't know why, but I'm just impatient and it's causing my legs to hurt." Yunyang said, "It must be spring. You took the medicine and took your time." On the other hand, he was invited to the room and sent to eat porridge because he said, "It's a big festival, please cheer up. It's Uncle Hu's birthday outside the door today, please go there. If you don't, ask the second brother Zhang Ying to come and sit with you," Simon King said. "He's not here either. He went to celebrate his birthday with Uncle Hua. You prepare the food and drinks while I go to the lantern market shop to sit with his second uncle." Yunyang said, "You go on horseback and I will teach the maid how to tidy up." On the one hand, Simon King asked Dan to prepare his horse, and Wang Jing followed him, put on his clothes, and went directly to the lantern market on Lion Street. But in the lantern market, there were cars and horses thundering, lantern balls shining brightly, and tourists like ants, making it very lively. Peaceful times bring good winds, and Luochi fights for the best. Aoshan Mountain is so high in the blue clouds that there is no place where tourists can't see it. Simon King looked back at the lamp, dismounted at the door of the house, went inside and sat down. The panicked second Uncle Wu and fourth uncle came to say hello. The door-to-door business is very prosperous. Lei Zhao's wife, who was 1 foot young, went to the study room early to light a fire and get some tea. After a while, Wu Yunyang asked Qin Tunger and Lai An'er to bring 2 square boxes of snacks, rice and vegetables. Nan Fang brought bean wine from the shop, opened a jar, placed it upstairs, and invited Uncle Wu and Bai Si to take turns drinking. You can see the lantern market outside the window of the building, with people coming and going. After dinner, Simon King sent Wang Jing to tell Wang Lior to go. When Wang Lior heard that Simon King was coming, he quickly prepared the spring platform and waited for him with fruit boxes, wine and food. Simon King then paid Lei Zhao, "I will leave this table of food and wine for Wu Erju and Ben Si to stay and eat here tonight. There is no need to take it home." He also taught the piano boy to carry a jar of wine to Wang Lior. Simon King then rode to his house. The woman was dressed up and welcomed into the bright room. She placed candles and seemed to have kowtowed for times. Simon King said, "I have received your generous gifts. So why didn't I invite you twice?" Wang Lior said, "Father said it well, who else is coming to my family? I don't know why I just feel bad these past 2 days. I am too lazy to eat, and I am too lazy to do anything." Simon King said, "You dare to miss your husband." The woman said, "I miss him. But I see that my father never comes here, so I am neglecting him for some reason. He pushed my turban back. I'm afraid I have another sweetheart." Simon King smiled and said, "That makes sense. I was busy for 2 days because I had wine at home during the festival." The woman said, "I said that my father had guests at his house yesterday." Simon King said, "Your aunt has had to banquets with others, so she has to invite people back to the banquet." The woman asked, "How many guests have you invited?" Simon King then told someone and said it from the beginning. The woman said, "Look at the lanterns and wine. Only those who are important will be invited, and I will not invite you every time." Simon King said, "It doesn't matter. There will be a banquet of wine until the 16th tomorrow. Please go to all the ladies and gentlemen. You must be there, but you can't go." The woman said, "If you give me a reward, how dare you not go?" Because the day before yesterday, his little eldest sister scolded the second sister Shen and taught him not to complain, saying that I always. He didn't want to come that day, but every time I encouraged him to go, I scolded him so he wouldn't cry here. I don't always mean to be rude. When he was lagging behind, He asked his parents to bother him again and gave him a box and a tael of silver to appease him. It turns out that the little eldest sister has such a violent temper that even if she beats a dog, she will look at the owner's face. Simon King said, "You don't know this little oily. He has such a bad temper. He scratched my eyes straight. I haven't seen him. He asks you to sing, so you just sing and listen to him. Who taught you not to sing and then told him to come?" The woman said, "Yeah, Korean music. Yeah, Korean music. He told me that when he asked me to come. He said that the little eldest sister came and pointed in the face and started scolding me. I cried with 3 lines of snot and 2 lines of tears. I kept him overnight and then sent him away. After talking for a while, the girl took some tea and ate it. Old Mrs. Feng came over and kowtowed to Simon King again. Simon King gave him about 3 or 4 yuan a piece of silver and said, "Since your mother is gone, you will not come to me." The woman said, "Where will he live without his master come to my place from time to time and keep company with me?" After a while, Simon King invited someone to sit in the room and asked, "Did you have lunch with me?" Simon King said, "I ate some porridge at home this morning. I just had 2 snacks with your second uncle, and I didn't eat anything." While setting the table, arranged for the wine to be served, the woman asked Wang Jing to open the bean wine and sift it out, and she accompanied Simon King to a place of drinking. The woman asked, "Did you see the thing I brought you?" It was all made by slave Xuan, who cut off a strip of hair from the top of his head. Guansing Daddy saw his love. Simon King said, "Thank you very much for your kindness." When he was half drunk and saw no one in the room, Simon King took it out of his sleeve and put it under the turtle's body. He tied 2 brocade belts around his waist. He drank Menghu's medicine with wine and the woman beat it with her hands, which made those words jump to the brain immediately. The horizontal tendons were all visible. The color was like a purple liver, and it was different from the silver holder and the white silk belt. Simon King sat in his arms with the woman in his arms, and the 2 of them drank wine from one another, smacking their tongues and laughing playfully. After dinner, Mother Feng made some more leek and pork cakes and brought them over. The woman and Simon King each ate 2, and the maid took them away. The 2 of them sat on the heated kang in the inner room, lifted up the brocade curtain, and dressed and went to bed. The woman knew that Simon King had good sex with a lamp, so she moved the lampstand to the table next to the kang in the inner room, closed the paper door, took a shower, took off her pants, got under the quilt, and hugged Simon King, hug each other and sleep for a while. It turned out that Simon King only thought about He Qianhu's wife, Lan Shi, and his lust was burning, so those words were very strong. The shilling woman lay down on her horse, put the words into the garden flower, and slapped her as hard as she could, about 200 to 300 degrees. She slapped her buttocks loudly. The woman rubbed her heart with her hands and shouted "Dada" like running water. Simon King was not satisfied yet, so he got up and put on his white silk coat, sat on a pillow, made the woman lie on her back, found a leg straps, tied the woman's feet to the pillars on both sides of the kang, and sold them. He picked up a golden dragon to probe the claws and put the words into the vagina. After a while, without exposing the brain, he pumped lightly and deeply, afraid that the woman would get cold. She also took a short red silk jacket and covered him with it. Taking advantage of his drunkenness, Simon King moved the light closer to him and lowered his head to play with its movement in and out. Withdraw it to the head and send it back to the root. Hundreds of times, all kinds of soft and trembling words came out of the woman's mouth, and they all came out. Simon King then took some pink ointment, applied it to the glands, and pushed it in. The woman's vagina was numb and itchy, so she ordered it to go deep in, and both sides welcomed her. Simon King pretended to linger, swaying his glands round her mouth and manipulating her heart. He refused to go deep, and the anxious woman's sexual fluids flowed out like a snail's saliva. In the light, I saw his legs wearing red shoes, hanging high on both sides, going back and forth, rushing and bumping. His excitement was uncontrollable, because she shouted, "Whore, do you miss me or not?" The woman said, "Why don't I want Dada? As long as your cypress tree stays green in winter and summer, it's fine. Don't let the days go by. When you get tired of playing, Bring me the slave. Ignore it. I just want to die. Who do you dare to talk to? Who knows? Even if that bastard of mine comes to the house, I won't talk to him. I think he is doing business outside. If he is rich, he will not support his wife. Are you willing to miss me? Simon King said, My son, if you focus on me, when he comes home, I will happily marry another one for him, and you will only have to wait for me forever. The woman said, Good daughter, wait for him to come home. At least you can marry him. Or leave me outside. Or invite me to your home. It depends on your heart. The slutty woman readily used her money-hungry body to just be with Dada, and there will be no one who doesn't rely on you. Simon King said, I know. While the two were talking, they had sex for 2 more meals before their semen came out. He took the wife's feet and brought him to the bed. She put her head on top of her buttocks and slept until the 3rd watch. Simon got up, dressed and washed his hands. The woman opened the door and asked the maid to come in. She added more delicious food, drank more fragrant mash, poured a full cup of warm wine, and had more than 10 cups with Simon King. Unconsciously, he got drunk, so he ordered some tea and rinsed his mouth. He took out a piece of paper from his sleeve and handed it to the woman. Wengan, please pick up a suit of clothes from the shop and wear them in any style you want. The woman thanked her and sent her out. Wang Jing lit a lantern, and Diane and Kintong caged their horses. It was also the 3rd watch at that time, with overcast clouds and a hazy moon. The streets were deserted and the dogs were barking in the alleys. As soon as Dama reached the stone bridge at the west end, there was a sudden whirlwind, and a black shadow emerged from under the bridge and pounced towards Simon King. When the horse saw it, it jumped in fright. Simon King shuddered on the horse. In his drunkenness, he whipped the horse shook its mane. Diane and Kintong pulled hard on the bit, unable to restrain it. Stay, look at your home like flying clouds, and run towards the future, until you reach the front door of your home. Wang Jing was holding a lantern and could not keep up. Simon King dismounted and his legs felt weak, so he was helped in from the left and right, and walked directly to Pan Jinlian's room in front. This time, it is exactly the same. People who have lost their way meet the 5 paths, and hungry ghosts in the cold land hit Zhang Kui. It turned out that Jin Lian was coming from behind. She was still awake and fell on the King with all her clothes on, waiting for Simon King. When he heard that he was coming, he quickly stood up and went forward to pick up his clothes. Seeing that he was very drunk after eating, I didn't dare to ask him. Simon Tai put a hand on his shoulder, hugged him in her arms, and murmured in her mouth, Little whore, you are drunk today. Clean up the shop while I sleep. The woman carried him to the King and sent him to rest. Simon King threw his head on the pillow and snored like thunder no matter how hard he shook. He couldn't wake up. Then the woman took off her clothes, got under the quilt, and slowly touched him with her waist. He felt as if he was soft, no longer tough, and she didn't know whose house he came from. Tossing and turning, he couldn't help but feel the lust burning all over his body, and his lustful heart was surging. He couldn't help but squeeze it with his hands. He squatted down and tasted it for him in every possible way under the quilt, but she couldn't afford it. An impatient woman wouldn't do that, because he asked Simon King, Where does the monk keep the medicine? After pushing him for a long time, he woke up. Simon King was drunk and cursed. What a little whore! Why are you only a consultant? You taught Dada to manipulate you again, but you are too lazy to move today. The medicine is in the heart-piercing box in my sleeve. You take it and eat it. If you have the ability to make him rise, it is your good fortune. The woman then took out the heart-piercing box from her sleeve and opened it. There were only 3 or 4 pills left in it. The woman took the wine pot, poured a minute of wine, took 1 pill, and had 3 pills left. I'm afraid it won't work, and I won't be able to cooperate with you at all. I'll take all the shaku and send it to Simon King's mouth. What does a drunk person know? Just eat with your eyes closed. When she drank a cup of hot tea, the medicine began to take effect. The woman tied the white silk ribbon to the root, and the words suddenly came to her mind. Seeing that he was just going to sleep, the woman rode on him and took some plaster and put it on the horse. In the eyes, push into the female body. Just rub it. The words go straight to the nest of the buds. I feel stunned. My whole body is numb, and it is so beautiful that it is indescribable. Then he pressed his hands with his hands and sat down together with his legs raised. He said this 100 or 200 times. It was astringent and stagnant at first, but then the vaginal fluid oozed out and slipped slightly. Simon King let him rub it and just ignored it. The woman couldn't take it anymore, so she kissed Simon King's mouth with her tongue, put her hands around his neck, rubbed it hard, and rubbed it from side to side. The handle was completely gone to the root, except for the 2 eggs. She touched it with her hands. It was indescribably beautiful and full of lustful water. Just wipe it out. Compared with 3 drums in the sky, 5 changes of kerchiefs are made. The woman lost it twice in a row, but Simon King just didn't let it go. The glands became more and more swollen, like coals of fire. The glands was so swollen that the woman removed the gland's penis. It was still swollen, causing the woman to suck it with her mouth. The woman leaned on top of him, wrapped her glands with her red lips, and just kept going back and forth. When she made an appointment for a meal, the essence in the tube suddenly burst out, just like a tube of mercury, and she was busy using her mouth to receive it. I can't swallow it, so I just wanted to flow out. At first it was still semen, but later it was all blood and there was no way to save him. Simon King has passed out and his limbs are still intact. The woman was also panicked and hurriedly took some red dates and ate them with him. The essence is exhausted, followed by blood, and the blood is exhausted and its cold energy is just released. It will take a long time to stop. The woman panicked, then she hugged Simon King and asked, "My brother, what's going on in your heart?" Simon King also regained consciousness for a while and said in dialect, "My leader is so stern, I don't know why." Jin Lian asked, "How come you have so much fluid today?" Not to mention that he used too much medicine. The judge heard that one person's energy is limited, but the world's lust is endless. It is also said that those with deep desires have little vitality. Simon King only knows about greed for sex and pleasure, not to mention that the oil dries up. The lamp goes out, and the marrow is exhausted and people die. It's exactly what I said at the beginning. The 28 beauties have a crisp body, and they have a sword at their waists to kill the foolish man. Although there are no dead heads, secretly the bones of the emperor are withered. One night scene has been mentioned. Early the next morning, Simon King got up to comb his hair. Suddenly he felt dizzy and looked ahead to grab the hair. She had been supported by JinPingMei's hands a long time ago, and she never fell and hurt her head and face. After sitting on the chair for a long time, I just came back. Panicked, Jin Lian quickly asked, "I'm afraid you are hollow and weak. You just sit there and eat something. It's not too late to go out." On the other hand, Qiu Zhu said, "Bring the porridge later to eat with your father." Qiu Zhu walked to the back kitchen and asked Zui, "What's wrong with the porridge?" "Dad is like this. I got dizzy this morning and fell down. Now I have to eat porridge." Not wanting to be heard by Yunyang, she called Qiu Zhu and asked her. Qiu Zhu told Simon King how he felt dizzy and fell while combing his hair. Yunyang refused to listen. After hearing this, her soul flew into the sky and her soul dispersed in the sky. While telling Zui to make porridge quickly, she came to the Golden Lotus room to take a look. Seeing Simon King sitting on a chair, he asked, "Why are you dizzy today?" Simon King said, "I don't know why, I just became dizzy." Jin Lian said, "JinPingMei and I should have come to support you earlier, otherwise we would have been so lighthearted. This will be a good relationship with you." Yunyang said, "I bet you came home late yesterday and your head is heavy after drinking too much." Jin Lian said, "Whose house did we go to for a drink yesterday? Then we will come later." Yunyang said, "He came to the shop to have wine with his second uncle yesterday." After a while, Zui cooked porridge, taught JinPingMei to hold it, and sent Simon King to eat it. Then Simon King picked up the porridge, ate only half of it, and put it down without bothering to eat. Yunyang said, "How do you feel?" Simon King said, "I don't do much, I'm just weak and too lazy to move." Yunyang said, "Why don't you go to the Yamen today?" Simon King said, "I'm not going." After a while, I looked forward and watched my brother-in-law write a note, inviting Zhou Jiaxuan, Jing Nangang, and he dared to have a drink with all the officials and guests on the 15th. Yunyang said, "You haven't taken any medicine today. Get milk and take another dose of the medicine. You have been working hard for days." At the same time, he taught Chunmei and Ryer to express the milk and put it in a cup, and taught Simon King to take the medicine and get up and go forward. Chunmei supported her, and as soon as she reached the door at the corner of the garden, her eyes became dark, her body swayed, and she could only fall down. Chunmei helped her back again. Yunyang said, "I'll just rest for 2 days and invite people. What's important is this moment. I'll rest in the house for 2 days and don't go out." Because he said, "Whatever you want to eat, I will cook it for you later." Simon King said, "I don't want to eat it." Yunyang went to the back and interrogated Jin Lian again. "Is he drunk when he came home yesterday? He has never had wine again. What did he do with you?" After Jin Lian heard this, she wished she could say 1,000 words. "Sister, you can't tell me. He came late. He was so drunk that he didn't even bother to salute, and he asked me for some soju. Taught me to use tea as wine to eat with him. I just said that there was no wine and sent him to sleep. Since my sister said it, whoever has anything to do with him is not ashamed. I am just afraid that it will be elsewhere. If something happens outside, I don't know about it. If it's at home, there's nothing going on." Yunyang and Yulu were sitting together. They called Diane and Kintong to interrogate him. "Where did your father come to have a drink yesterday? Just tell the truth. Otherwise, if there is a mistake, you will be here on the 2 prisoners' bodies." Na Diane gritted his teeth and only said that he was having a drink with a second uncle and by Shizi Street and never went there again. When he fell behind, he called his second uncle Wu to come and ask him. The second uncle said, "My brother-in-law only stayed with me for a few drinks, then got up and went elsewhere." Wu Yunyang was furious after hearing this. When her second uncle laughed, she scolded Diane and Kintong as hard as she could and wanted to beat them both. The 2 of them panicked and just said, "Yesterday I went to Han Daobo's wife's house for a drink." Pan Jinlian came over with a sigh of relief and said, "Sister complained just now that every time I come here, I just kill others unjustly and laugh at the murder of thieves. Everyone has a face, and every tree has its bark. Sister, what can I say? Could it be that I keep this matter in my mind every day?" Simon King said, "I didn't even go to the Yamen today to pay homage to the cards. I went to give away fake cards." The Earl said, "I don't know if I can go. I'll go out in 2 days for a big cure. After eating tea," he said, "I'll go and see you again. Sister Li Gui has met Wu Yin'er and wants to see you too." Simon King said, "You go and eat." The Earl said, "I won't eat some." He went out. Simon King then asked Kintong to go outside and invite a medical officer. He entered the room, checked his pulse, and said, "Mister, your ailment is due to inflammation caused by deficiency fire and depleted kidney water. It cannot be cured. This is a condition of detoxification. It is a young disease. Only by replenishing the yin deficiency can the disease be cured." After speaking, he stood up and laughed. On the one hand, he sealed 5 coins, asked for the medicine, and took it. The dizziness stopped, but my body was still weak and I couldn't get up. The lower kidney capsule became more and more swollen and painful, and it was very difficult to urinate. Simon King then asked Kintong to go outside and invite a medical officer. He entered the room, checked his pulse, and said, "Mister, your ailment is due to inflammation caused by deficiency fire and depleted kidney water. It cannot be cured. This is a condition of detoxification. It is a young disease. Only by supplementing the yin deficiency can the disease be cured." After saying that, he stood up and laughed. On the one hand, he sealed 5 coins, asked for the medicine, and took it. The dizziness stopped, but my body was still weak and I couldn't get up. The lower kidney capsule became more and more swollen and painful, and it was very difficult to urinate. In the afternoon, Sister Li Gui and Wu Yin'er came to watch in a sedan chair. Each person had 2 boxes. He entered the room and kowtowed to Simon King, saying, Why is Dad feeling so uncomfortable? Simon King said, your sister and son just came here to take a look. So why bother buying gifts? Because he said, I don't know why this year. My phlegm is more severe. Sister Gui said, Dad drank too much wine this holiday season. I'll just clean him up for 2 days, and he'll be fine. After sitting for a while, I walked to Li Ping'er's room to meet Yunyang and others. Please go to the back. After serving tea, you come to the front and sit with Simon King and talk. I saw that the Count accompanied Zizide and Chang Jiji to visit again. Simon King taught Yu Xiao to help him up and sit down, leaving the 3 of them in the room and setting the table to eat wine. Zishi said, Brother, have you used some porridge? Yu Xiao turned her head and refused. Simon King said, I haven't eaten the porridge yet. I can't swallow it. Shi Daodao said, get the porridge. It's okay if I eat some porridge with my brother every time. After a while, bring some porridge. Simon King picked up the porridge, only half of it was eaten, and he couldn't eat any more. Yunyang, Sister Li Gui, and Wu Yin'er were all sitting next to Li Ping'er. The Earl asked, Sister Li Gui and Sister Yin are here. Why are they missing? Simon King said, they're sitting over there. The Earl came to Anna with an order, please come over and sing a song with your father. Wu Yunyang was afraid that Simon King would be impatient, so she stopped him and said she was just having a drink, not teaching him. After everyone had a drink, they said, Brother, every time you sit with me, I'm afraid I'll have to work hard for you. Every time I go, just sit back and relax. Simon King said, let everyone be concerned. The 3 of them resigned. Earl Ying walked out of the small courtyard and asked Diane to come over and share the payment. Tell your aunt, Ying'er Dad said that your dad's face has changed color and he is a little sluggish. It's not good. Someone should have looked at him. Doctor who was on the street, the best cure for phlegm fire. Why not ask someone to ask him to take a look? Don't delay. Diane didn't dare to neglect and came over to tell Yunyang. Yunyang hurried into the room and said to Simon King, just now. The second brother Ying told the boy that Doctor Who on the street treated phlegm and fire well. Why don't you ask him to come and see you? Simon King said, in front of Doctor Who, seeing that Sister Li is in trouble. Why do you invite him again? Yunyang said, medicine cannot cure the disease, and Buddha can save the destined people. Seeing that he is ineffective, I am afraid that if you are destined to take his medicine, you will be cured. Simon King said, that's fine, you invite him to go. After a while, Shiki Tunger invited Doctor Who to come. Uncle Wu came to see him and accompanied him to the room to check his pulse. He said to Uncle Wu and Chen Jingji, my father has poison in his lower parts. If left untreated for a long time, he will suffer from blood-drown disease. He must endure it and have sex. He also divined the 5-star medicinal gold and asked for the medicine to be taken. It was like a stone sinking into the sea, unable to come out. Yunyang panicked, sent Sister Gui and Wu Yin'er away, and invited He Chun Quan, the son of Mr. He, to come and see them. He also said, it's caused by constipation and poison, and a ball of evil fire in the bladder has rushed down here. In the meridians of the limbs, there is accumulation of dampness and phlegm, causing the heart and kidneys to be disconnected. I sealed 5 coins of medicine and asked for the medicine. Come on, the Zhu Yang is getting stronger and stronger, and the hair is like an iron handle, which does not fall down day and night. Pan Jinlian, regardless of good or bad, still rode on him late at night, pouring candles on him and playing with him, causing him to die and revive several times. The next day, if thousands of households want to come to visit, please send someone to tell them first. Yunyang then said to Simon King, Master, he wants to see you. I'll help you go to the back. I'm not a good person to treat others by cheating on others here. Then Simon King nodded. So Yunyang put on warm clothes for him, put her arm around Jin Lian's shoulders, and then left Jin Lian's room, went to the back room, laid out bedding and pillows, and made him sit on the king in the open room, clean the room and burn incense. After a while, He Qian who arrived, and Chen Jingji invited him to the back bedroom. When he saw Simon King sitting on the hospital bed, he said, Sir, I don't dare to bow. He asked, How are your ailments feeling? Simon King said, The fire above has gone down, but the lower part is swollen and poisonous, so I can't treat it. He Qianhu said, "This is due to stool poisoning. My student has an acquaintance who is visiting relatives in Dongchang Prefecture. Yesterday, a new person came to his house. He is from Fenzhou, Shaanxi. His surname is Liu Zhujai. He is half a century old. He is very prone to sores. I sent someone to invite him to come and see if the officer is ill." Simon King said, "Thank you for your trouble, sir. I will send someone here to invite you." After He Qianhu finished his tea, he said, "Sir, please be patient and take care. There is something going on in the Yemen, and I will report it to you every day as promised, so don't worry about it." Simon King raised his hand and said, "It's just that I have a problem, sir. Make a speech and go out." Simon King immediately sent Diane to take Tear and invited Liu Zhujai to come with the He family. After checking the pulse, it was not inconvenient, so I quickly applied medicine and sealed a piece of decoction. Simon King responded with a piece of Hangzhou silk and one tael of silver. After taking his first medicine, there was no movement. That day, Zheng Yuer gave a box of pigeon chicks and a box of fruit cakes with crispy tops, and sat in a sedan chair to see them. Entering the door, he kowtowed to Simon King and said, "I didn't know that Dad was not good. Sister Gui and Sister Yin are good people. They didn't say anything to me, but they came first. Dad was late when he saw it, so don't blame me." Simon King said, "It's not too late. I'll start you to worry about it and buy gifts again." Ayur smiled and said, "What a big gift. I'm scared." Because he said, "Dad is so thin. How much should he use for food every day?" Yunyang said, "I have finished using it, so I don't eat much. This morning, I only ate some porridge and soup. Just now the imperial doctor took a look at it." Ayur said, "Mom, ask Sister Fu to eat the pigeon chicks one by one, and wait for me to persuade Dad to eat some porridge. You don't want to eat. You are so big, and your whole family seems to be relying on you. But so what?" Yunyang said, "He only has trouble in his heart and mouth, so he can't eat anything." Ayur said, "Dad, just follow my advice. If you don't wait to eat this drink, you will have to force yourself to eat more." What's wrong? Human beings have no roots. Water and food are their livelihood. You must use them eventually, otherwise, Taolu's body becomes increasingly empty. After a while, the pigeon chicks were rotten, and Xiaoyu brought them porridge, including sweet pickled melon, eggplant, and japonica corn porridge. Zheng Yuer jumped onto the king, held it up with a cup, knelt beside Simon King, and fed him mouth after mouth. I mustered up my energy and only ate half of the cup. After picking up the chopsticks and putting the young pigeon in his mouth, he shook his head and refused to eat. Ayur said, "First of all, it's just medicine, and secondly, thanks to my persuasion, I also got some food." Yu Xiao said, "Dad also takes it every day. It's not like today when Sister Yu came to persuade me, eat more." Yunyang served tea to Ayur while she was eating, and took care of the wine and food in the evening. She gave him 5 coins and sent him home. Before Ayur left the house, she kowtowed to Simon King again, and said, "Dad, you have to be patient for 2 days, and I will come see you again." In the evening, Simon King took the second patch of Liu Zhujai's medicine. He suffered from pain all over his body and cried out all night. By the time of the 5th watch, the kidney sac in the inconvenient area ruptured, and a pool of blood flowed out. A sore appeared on the gland's penis, and the yellow water continued to flow. Simon King unconsciously passed out. Yunyang and others were panicked, and they all kept watching. When they saw that the medicine was not effective, they invited Mrs. Liu to light lamps with Simon King in the rolling shed in front. At the same time, she sent the servant to Zhou Xiaobai's house to visit Wu Shengshen. There, I invited him to come and see him, because his original Simon King suffered from vomiting blood, bleeding and pus this year, and was emaciated. Bai Si said, "There is no need to ask Mr. Zhou to go inside the house." Now Wu Shengshen saw a divination shop outside the door in front of the Earth Temple. He also practiced medicine and sold divination. When someone invited him, he would go and see him without fighting for anything. Rule: Yunyang quickly asked Qin Tong to invite Wu Shengshan to come. When I entered the room, I saw that Simon King was not as good as before. His appearance was reduced. His body was weak, and he was lying on the bed tied with a handkerchief. First, he checked his pulse and said, the official suffered from excessive drinking and sex. His kidneys were exhausted, and Taikai's evil fire gathered in the sea of desire. His illness was terminal and difficult to treat. I have 8 lines of a poem for you to listen to. Just because he drunkenly had sex with Nu, and his spirit and blood were secretly wasting away. Nocturnal emissions, drowning in blood and white turbidity, dryness of kidneys and water when the lamp is exhausted. At that time, I only regretted the lack of entertainment, but today I regret that there are many diseases. Yeshan collapsed without human resources. So what could Dr. Lu do? Seeing that he said there was no cure, Yunyang said, since the medicine is not good. Sir, what do you think of his fate? Wu Shengshan pinched his fingers to find the pattern, and figured out the character Simon King, and said, if you are a tiger, it will be in the Bingyan year, the Wushan month, the Renwu day, and the Bingchen hour. This year is the 33rd year of the Wexu festival, and fortune-telling will reveal the fortune of Guihai. Although the fire earth hurts the officials, this year the Wu earth comes to defeat the Ren water. The first month of the year is also the month of Woyan, and the third month of Wu coincides with Chen. How did it come to be? Even if you get rich and prosperous, you cannot guarantee your longevity. There are 4 sentences that are poorly judged. Said, if someone is destined to have a disaster star, the person will be low, and if the body is light and heavy, there will be disaster. If the time is really too old, even the gods will frown. Yunyang said, my fate is not good, sir. Do you have any solution? The immortal said, the white tiger is in charge, and the dead family is sitting on the fate. The gods have no solution, and it is difficult to push back the old age. Creation has been determined, and gods and ghosts cannot move it. Yunyang had no choice but to take a piece of cloth, thank the gods and send out. Yunyang was panicked when she saw that praying to gods and asking for divination meant bad things but bad luck. In the evening, people burn incense in the courtyard and make a wish to the sky, promising that when my husband is well, he will go to the top of Tai'an Prefecture to offer incense and hang robes with his wife for 3 years. After a while, Mr. Fu, Mr. Gan, Uncle Wu, Bai Si and Chui Bin all came in to see and say hello. Simon King paid them all one by one. Everyone said, you are so relieved. It doesn't matter. There are many people who come to pay their respects in one day. Seeing Simon King's heaviness, they all sighed and laughed. 2 days later, Yunyang was infatuated, hoping that Simon King would be okay. But who knew the fate of the day, and she would pass away at the age of 33. On the 21st day of the first lunar month, at the 5th watch, Chiang Huo burned his body and turned into wind, which sounded like a cow roaring, and he panted for half the night. At the end of the battle, he died, sadly. Exactly, 3 inches of qi can be used in many ways, but once it is impermanent, everything will stop. There are a few proverbs from the ancients that are very well said. To accumulate good deeds, do not accumulate too much wealth. Accumulating good deeds will lead to good people. Accumulating wealth will lead to disaster. Shi Chong was rich that day, and it was inevitable that he would be killed. Deng Tong died of hunger. What use is the mountain of money? People today are not like ancient times, and their minds are unclear. It is only said that accumulating wealth is good, but it is laughed at that accumulating money is good. How many rich people have died without a coffin? It turned out that Simon King fell down, and the coffin had not been prepared yet. Panicked, Wu Yunyang called Uncle Wu and Ben Si to come over, opened the box, took out 4 ingots of gold ingots, and taught them to look at the wood board. I just sent him away, but he suddenly felt a pain in his stomach. He threw himself on the bed and fell unconscious. Meng Yulu, Pan Jinlian, and Sun Zui were all in the room over there, busy helping Simon wear Ting scarves and dress up. Suddenly I heard Xiao Yu say, my mother fell on the bed. Yulu and Li Jiar panicked and came to check on her. Yunyang pressed her hands on her stomach, which made her feel pain, and she knew she had to give up. Yulu taught Li Jiar to guard Yunyang. so he came to ask the young man to quickly invite Kai Lao Niang. Li Jiar sent Yuxiao to teach Ryer again. When Yulu returned to the upper room, Li Jiar was missing. It turned out that Li Jiar had caught up with Yunyang because she was sleepy. There was no one in the room, and the box was open, so she secretly took 5 ingots and went into his room, holding a piece of paper in his hand. When he saw Yulu, he just said, "I can't find the toilet paper. I will go to the room to look for the toilet paper." The Yulu didn't pay attention and guarded Yunyang, serving her with a trowel. When she saw Yunyang, she was in severe pain. After a while, Mrs. Kai arrived and immediately gave birth to a baby. In this room, Simon King was pretending to be Liu, but his breath was gone, and the whole family started to cry loudly. Madame Kai wrapped the baby, cut off the umbilical cord, cooked the heartwarming soup and ate it with Yunyang. Fu Yunyang sat on the warm bed. Yunyang gave Kai Lao Niang 3 taels of silver, but Kai Lao Niang thought it was too little, and said, "How much you rewarded me for raising that brother, and how much you have to do with me? Don't say that this brother was born and raised by my aunt," Yunyang said. "It can't be compared to that time when the father of the family was here. Now that I don't have my father, I'll just accept it. I'll give you 1 or 2 more when I come to wash my clothes." Madame Kai said, "Just reward me with a set of clothes. Thank you." Yunyang woke up and saw the box wide open, so she scolded Yuxiao. "It's smelly meat, so I fainted, and so did you? The box is wide open, and people leave in a mess, so they don't lock it." Yuxiao said, "I only said that my mother locked the box and never saw it, so he took the lock and locked it." Seeing that Yunyang was worried, Yulu refused to stay in his room. He walked out and said to Jinlian, "It turns out that the eldest sister is such a bad man. She was on guard against others on the first day." Little did they know that Li Jiar had already stolen 5 ingots of gold ingots and left them in the house. At that time, Uncle Wu and Bai Si went to Shang Tuiguan's house and bought a pair of coffin boards and taught the craftsmen how to saw them into a coffin. The servants carried Simon King out, parked him in the hole, and invited Mr. Yin and Yangzu to approve the book. After a while, Uncle Wu also came. Second Uncle Wu, all the waiters were busy in the front hall, putting away lamps and rolling paintings, covering them with paper quilts, and setting up several tables with incense lamps. Come to Anner to focus on polishing. Mr. Zhu looked at his hand and said, "If you die at the right time, your whole family will not commit any evil. I would like to ask Yunyang, there will be a 3-day burial. The ground will be broken on February 16th, and the funeral will take place on the 30th. There will be more than 4 or 7 days." While I was in charge of Mr. Zhu's departure, I sent people everywhere to announce the funeral, hand over seals, and go to thousands of homes. There was no need to go into details. On the 3rd day, ask the monks to recite the Taodu Sutra and pick out the paper money. Everyone in the family wears linen and mourns. The son-in-law Chen Jingji cut off the weeping stick and returned the courtesy in front of the spirit. Yunyang cannot get out of the dark room. Li Jiar and Yulu waited on the guests. Pan Jinlian managed the warehouse and collected the sacrificial tables. Sun Sui led her family and daughter-in-law to serve everyone in the kitchen. Uncle Fu, second Uncle Wu are in charge of the accounts, and fourth uncle is in charge of the filial account. Lake Sing is in charge of the kitchen. Uncle Wu and Uncle Gan are in charge of the guests. Kai Lao Niang came to wash for 3 days, and Yu Niang sent away with a set of silk clothes. He named the child Brother Shao, which would be a happy occasion. Relatives and neighbors all said, the official wife of Simon King, Zheng To, gave birth to a son. She died on the same day as me and gave birth to a son on the other. There are such strange things in the world. Not to mention that everyone is confused about this matter. It is said that when Count Ying heard that Simon King was gone, he came to pay his respects and cried for a while. Uncle Wu and his second uncle were watching the teleportation with Simon King in the rolling booth. The Earl came up, greeted everyone, and said, "It's sad, I didn't know in my dream that my brother is gone." When he wanted to invite Yunyang to visit, Uncle Wu said, "My sister-in-law can't get out of the dark room. This means she got a baby on the same day." The Earl said in astonishment, "It's such a thing. It doesn't matter, I have a descendant. and this family has a master. Chen Jingji, who was lagging behind, was dressed in filial piety and came to kowtow to the earl. The earl said, "Brother-in-law, I'm worried. Your father is gone, and your mother is dead. You have to be careful about everything at home. If you have something to do, you can't do it yourself. I would like to ask your two uncles for their advice. It's not my place to say. You are young. The matter is not very experienced yet." Uncle Wu said, "Second brother, you have nothing to say. I have official business, so I don't have time to spare. And I see his mother is here." The earl said, "Good uncle, even though I have a sister-in-law, how do we deal with external affairs? It is my uncle's opinion. Since ancient times, there is no birth without an uncle, and there is no growth without an uncle. A biological uncle cannot compare with others. You old man is a man with no roots. Master, who else is older?" Because he asked, "Is there a date for the funeral?" Uncle Wu said, "The groundbreaking will be held on February 16th, and the funeral will be held on the 30th, which is also outside the 47th day." After a while, Mr. Zhu came and offered the memorial service. After the coffin was laid, Simon King was put into the coffin, nailed with long-lasting nails, placed in place, and inscribed with the title, "The Coffin of Duke Simon." The General of Military Strategy was inscribed. On that day, thousands of households came to pay their respects. After paying homage before the funeral, Uncle Wu and the Earl accompanied him to tea and asked about the date of the ceremony. He Qian, who assigned his subordinates to arrange the troops. As promised, no one was allowed to move and they were all here to serve. After passing through Feyin, he was allowed to return to the Yamen as an errand. 2 section-level leaders were also appointed. If there were any violations, they would be brought in for serious punishment. He also said to Uncle Wu, if there are outsiders who default on their silver taels and refuse to pay them back, I will just tell them and the students will pursue them immediately. Dao Laobai went to the Yamen to open up a vacancy and reported to Tokyo headquarters. The words are divided into 2 parts, but it is said that Lai Ju, Chen Hong and Li San went to the Yanzhou Procuratorate one day and handed in the letter. When the Song Yeshi saw the section in Simon King's book asking for approval of ancient artifacts, he said, "You would have been better off earlier. Everything was done yesterday. I have sent comparators to various governments." While I was thinking about it, I saw that Simon King's book had 12 tales of gold leaves sealed in it, and it was difficult to disobey it. Then Chen Hong, Lai Ju and Li San were left in Gongsha. Immediately, he sent a quick hand to get the card and rushed back to Dongping Mansion to get the approval. He sealed it back in a book with Chen Hong and paid 1 or 2 tolls before taking the road back to King County, a 10-day round trip. When I walked into the city, I heard people on the road saying, "The official Simon is dead. I will be reciting sutras and fasting at home for the next 3 days." Li San had a treacherous plot. On the way, he said to Lai Ju and Chen Hong, "I suppress this approval document and just say that Mr. Song did not come with me. We will always go to Mr. Zhang or on the street. Don't you to go, I'll give you 10 taels of silver each, and you'll have to stay at home and don't take it out." When Lai Ju saw the property, he agreed, but Chen Hong refused and made a vague promise. When he got home, he saw the head of the family carrying paper money, the monks doing a monastery, and countless relatives and friends paying their respects. So Li San split up and went home. When Lai Ju and Chen Hong saw Uncle Wu and Chen Jingji kowtow, they asked, "How about asking for approval? Why doesn't Li San come?" Lai Ju wanted to say no, but Chen Hong took out all the Song Yeshi books and approved them. He handed it to his uncle and told him the 10 taels of silver he had received from Li San on the way. He told him to hide it in such a way that he could not take it out and went with him to Zhang Erguin's house. "How dare you be ungrateful? Young man, run away, come home." Uncle Wu walked to the back and told Yunyang, "This little boy is a kind-hearted person. Li San is a short-lived guy. He has seen his brother-in-law for a few days, so he is so bad-hearted." Because he told the Earl about this matter, Li Zi and Huang Si borrowed the principal and interest from the deed and still owed 650 taels of silver. Taking advantage of Lord He's payment just now, they wrote a paper about this matter and submitted it to the Yamen. Teach him to chase the money for me and send it to my brother-in-law. He is determined to do his share among his fellow inmates, and these things cannot be ignored." The Earl panicked and said, "Li San shouldn't have done this. I'll stop thinking about it and wait until I talk to him." So he went to Li San's house and invited Huang Si to come and discuss things together. Said, "You shouldn't have handed the money to the boy first, but acted as a steward instead. You couldn't beat the fox, but you made a fuss. Now, I'm going to take a document to punish you every mile." As the saying goes, officials protect each other. What's more, how can you stand up to a fight between fellow inmates? According to me, it's better to quietly give Uncle Wu 20 taels of silver and just pretend that the Yanzhou government has done something. I heard that he won't pay for this money and food. The family is no longer in business. So let's take this batch of rare documents and give it to Mr. Zhang. You can collect another 200 taels for each of the two of you, and the younger one won't be able to take it out. Then prepare a sacrificial table to pay homage to a high-ranking official. The two of them hand over the money to him. Set up a separate debt note. If you have a business in the future, you can just pay him back slowly. This kills two birds with one stone without losing the favor, and it has an end. Huang Sidao, you are right. Brother Li San, you are too hasty in your work. In the evening, Count Huang Sidong sent 20 taels of silver to Uncle Wu's house. And so on, asking for approval in one section. Uncle Lei asserts his claim. Uncle Wu had already heard his sister say that she didn't want to make money or food. What's more, he saw that the money was just shining in vain, so he didn't accept it. So he accepted the money. The next day, Li Zi and Huang Si prepared a table with 3 pig heads and 200 taels of silver to pay homage to Simon King. Uncle Wu told Yunyang, took out the old documents, wrote a new debt note of 400 taels, spared him 50 taels, taught him to do business with the rest, and returned them one after another. He handed the approval document into the hands of the Earl and went to Zhang Erguin's office to form a partnership and paid the money and food. It's just that gold can know its color when it is tempered by fire, and people can know their heart when they are in contact with money. There is a poem to prove it. Don't force things on people. I advise you to accept everything with your heart. You are greedy to gain people's fortune now, but there are still more people to gain later.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.